Hi everyone, here a video about Poncho Nicole and then the single knitted one. This is a round loom and Poncho Nicole will be knitted in panels, flat panels. How can you start this? There are a few things you have to keep in mind when you start this poncho. What do I want with my poncho? Do I want a border with garter stitch, or do I want a border in rib stitch and then rib stitch 1 true knit 1 purl? And as you can see, this is a bit, this gets a bit stretchier, so it looks like you have a closed border. There are a few things that you have to keep in mind, because you know this poncho is knitted in 4 parts and you want to have those 4 parts identically. Now, the first thing you have to do is your cast on. Either you do it from the left to the right or from the right to the left. That's the first thing you have to write down for yourself. Then, if you want to do a garter stitch, if you always do the garter stitch from one side, from the right to the left or from the left to the right, it will be identically for all the parts you are going to knit. My poncho, I always knitted the purl stitch from the right because that's the easiest way for me to do the purl stitch when I'm knitting a flat panel. Maybe you can try out that at first, which way works the best for you when you're knitting a flat panel. That's also a thing to keep in mind when you're busy. You always know when I'm at the right side, whenever it is the left or the right part. When I'm at the right side of my panel, I always knit the purl stitch. When you do a rib stitch in this poncho, keep in mind that it is easy to do a cast on which is odd. So when you start with a knit, you will always end with a knit, and then it's better to seam it together when you have to seam the 2 panels of the 2 parts of the front or the back together. So that are a few things to keep in mind when you start knitting this poncho. You can decide to do a border with 8 rows and then 5 stitches, but you also can decide to do a bigger border. Then you have to adjust also the knit stitches over here. The 2 parts, as well as the front or in the back, will be knitted in reverse. So your left part, the border will be at the left, and with your right part, of course, it will be at the right. Maybe it's easier to put a marker over here so you know this is where my garter or rib stitch will be. And they must be in reverse, otherwise you get your rib stitch or garter stitch in the middle, and that's not what we want to. So you always have a left part and a right part in reverse. I hope with this kind of information that it will be a lot easier to start your poncho. In the pattern you see some schedules, and maybe they will help you to get your own poncho, because every poncho is different and every poncho is knitted in different rows, and that's why I start with the back part And the first one is the one you are going to use to calculate where your buttonholes are going to be, and so you also know how many rows you have knitted, and after you know the amount of rows, you can write that down and you can make your other parts of the poncho. And that is the most easiest way to do. Of course there will be other ways, but this is the way I thought was easy, so I wanted to share that with you, that it will be easier for you to make your own poncho. Okay. Other videos will have items like the buttonholes and how to determine where your buttonholes will be. Okay, I hope to see you in another video. Bye bye.